Okay. Good evening, one and all. Welcome to another Sunday at the round table. I am Mike Inita, your host, and my co hosts are Las Crawford and Patrick McCarthy. Brother John Arton will not be with us today, he's traveling. I'm expecting MP Hilton to join us because we want to have a discussion around the budget. Okay? Because there are some weird things happening at at Parliament. Last week, as you know, was the budget debate, and one of the highlights of the budget debate was the walking out of Parliament by the government side, not the opposition, by the government side. Consequently, the opposition leader was unable to finish his speech. He had to resort to the street where he went and he talked, and folks just celebrating. I'm not sure if that is a precedent him set there. But one of his reaction when he was asked about it, he said, "Man, it felt like 1938." That is him talking to finishing his speech outside of Parliament. I don't know what's happening, but I'd say this much: opposition leader came out against Holness as the Speaker of the House. And he made a very important point that she, being the wife of the Prime Minister, has a conflict. You know, the leadership of the government and the House is controlled by the wife and husband team of Holness and the Prime Minister. And the PNP is now saying that is not healthy. I am really sorry that the PNP reached this stage because when Holness was nominated to be Speaker, this platform was one of the first to come out and say that something is wrong with that sort of arrangement. You can't have Holness as the Prime Minister and then his wife as leader of as the Speaker of the House. There is a conflict, it set a certain precedent which I'm not sure Jamaica is going to be happy with this. I don't know what the other brethren them think, but I want us to have a discussion around what is your take? Was it right for the PNP to first express no opposition to it, then later on, after a couple of months, now they are coming and establish themselves as being holy and thou? What is happening with the PNP? Is this because of the victory at the local government election sort of strengthen the PNP and they're now flexing their muscles? What is happening? Are we in for a rough election campaign? Because now Jamaica is in the electoral mood. Election is just around the corner. What do you guys think about the fact that the GLP walk out of Parliament over the issue of Holness serving as Speaker?
Um, I I too found it a bit. I couldn't wrap my head around why the PNP waited until this moment to see any problems with Olness' wife being Speaker of the House. I remember we discussing the issue, and most of the people on this platform, as you say, had a big problem with that arrangement. But I don't remember who was it who we had on that made some comments about constitution and that the the constitutional requirements were met and whatever for her to be Speaker of the House. Even then, it just did not seem right. But I can understand how it rubbed the GLP to get them to walk out because it kind of play in their hands to call out hypocrisy, right, on the part of the PNP. Because I believe the PNP have lots of grounds to to attack um, Miss Wholeness, right, and her performance and genuine grounds. But being silent under appointment and then making this a centerpiece of their presentation this time around, it I can't wrap my head around it.
Patrick,
Yeah, I don't think I have much to add beyond what has already been said. But the only thing I would say is that I think it was a consensus that it was all in bad taste, not just in bad taste, but it reflected something which wasn't healthy, right, for the government. So that was something we were all in agreement about, pretty much.
when you say all in agreement, you're not including this platform because we came out against it.
No, no, no.
I remember.
I'm speaking about this platform. This platform was all in agreement that it didn't look good for um the government. It was really smelly for the government. Um, as the prime minister, his wife as speaker at the house, both at the same time.
Yeah, it's not good for our democracy. Certainly, it's not good for our democracy. And on top of that, you find that a lot of reports are not coming to the parliament. When a table, it's like something is fishy. Something fishy as to this appointment seem as if it was done in order to protect someone or somebody or something. Because the way things are playing out right now, the fact that she refused to bring certain reports to the parliament and she delayed, and now we're told that two reports submitted by the auditor general was returned to the auditor general. you know so something's definitely wrong with this arrangement. I really think that it is a sad day for the Jamaican democracy when the wife and husband team the wife and husband team dominate the parliament. That's how I feel. I don't know what
But
Mr. Hilton will say when he gets here,
I
but
I
go
I
ahead,
I,
Nas.
thi- I think it's sad too that the PNP did not jump on this thing when it happened, right? Paulwell came out and supported her on behalf of the PNP, right? And the rest of the PNP was literally silent, right? Which meant they had no issue with the arrangement, right? And I would expect that the opposition, as part of the defenders of our democracy, would jump on these things as they arise and not just wait until some later time down the road, you know, to really raise these issues. Because some people are gonna say it's hypocrisy, as the GLP are saying, right? So with a hope that in the future, when the PNP see something like that them rethink is there are lots of lawyers inside of the PNP, just like the GLP. So they are not short of people to examine these things and to see how it's going and whether it's constitutional or whether it's it's against the democracy in other countries. So we expect them to speak up and speak up quickly.
Rupert, we're talking about the oldness issue. Oldness serving as speaker and prime minister and the JLP walkout. You're on the ground in Jamaica. What can you tell us? What's going on? With regards to the budget,
Mm.
this issue. Yeah. What's going on?
First of all, heal the man them, you know.
Respect, Rupi.
Yeah,
Yes.
but when I left the woman with the woman there, brother.
Well, we
Shakon,
are
What
wait
kind
for
of
shall
bull
come.
party this?
No,
T
shall come,
Mac, what
shall
kind of
come.
bull party this? Eh?
yeah, she's supposed to come.
All right, brethren. Generally speaking, I think there's a feeling within the country that um in the first instance that for the prime minister wife to actually be the house speaker, to some extent it leave a lot to be desired from the point of view of um tendency to, because as we all know that the speaker of the house, even when the person is from the party that comprise the government, the fact remains that the person have to show some amount of independence in terms of trying to be fair as the speaker of the house. Because in a nutshell, the person is really the chairperson for the house. That is the position that the person held. Um, so there's a feeling that in the first instant it was wrong. And I think that people generally also think that the fact that you are the government of the day, you represent, I think it's 49 out of 63, if my memory serves me right. The vast majority, in fact, I think they had a two-third majority. And you are going to, because of an incident where the opposition leader raised the question of integrity as it relating to the House Speaker, you can get up and walk out. I mean, it's sheer stupidity. I think it's a miscalculation. I think Margolin is correct that the Prime Minister allowed his emotion to overcome him. And in fact, I think to some extent, apparently, he take the thing personal. I don't think there's no question that coming from the opposition leader, it certainly is not personal. It's just dealing with the people, business, based on my understanding. And in fact, what the opposition leader do is to echo the voice of the people. That was extremely popular on the ground. In fact, I think she makes some blunders. The whole in the report from the Auditor General and other reports. In fact, I think she actually returned those reports. And there's no law when the Auditor General report table, there's no law that say you can return it back to the Auditor General, right? You can discuss it and have differences with it and express different opinion and present uh, facts to compete with what is being presented. But there's nothing in law that say you can return it back to the Auditor General. And so I think the Prime Minister err and him err big time, because if you listen to even his own sources, for example, Cliff Hughes and Nationwide, you know that Cliff Hughes have a way in terms of how they actually support the government. And when Cliff Hughes have to be critical of the decision of the Prime Minister to walk out, then you know that it was definitely a huge error, political error. And I think history game record it because I think it's the first time in the history of the country since adult suffrage that a government walkout on itself, you know.
Well, but what you think about the PNP waiting until this time to raise issues against Holness
Yeah,
wife
I hear a little
being
part of
Speaker of the
your
House?
thing, Lass, and you might be correct. In the first instant, Paul, who is the host, the host representative representing the opposition, Paul will, without hesitation, just get up and second it. When I think it was the Justice Minister from the JLP that actually nominate her um, after Ram Wrinkle resigned. Um, I think the PNP in just on reflection, I think without hesitation they actually second her, and that in itself might be an error too, um, from the PNP.
Rupi, can you fix your camera? Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah,
you
that's
know,
much better.
right. So I sympathetic with your views, last that the party shouldn't wait until now in order to raise it, because it was something on the ground. I mean, for months and weeks, and that people were very upset in terms of her carry on. She have a style in terms of how she managed the house, and is a style that is not equitable. Is a style that tend to be partisan and so on and so forth. And people were upset based on our management. So the party should have, in my view, as I say, I supporting last opinion. The party maybe should have rose it some time ago.
Maxine, we're talking about the budget and the walkout of the government. You're in Jamaica. What's happening?
Well,
Where you
I
come,
think,
Maxine?
okay, bless. I
Yes.
think that it wasn't just what the statement was, but apparently there was quite a bit of description in terms of questions arising from the question of Juliet Holness's position in the report, in the presentation that Mark Goulding that was reading or presenting. And so I think he made mention that it was the follow-up remarks, the follow-up statements that he was going to, the areas that he was going to go into, you know, after declaring what he declared about the potential conflict of interest with the speaker. But I also think that the reason why it is coming up now, for me, is that the PNP just got some, what you call, boosts from the local elections. And so I think they were feeling stronger. I'm not sure what the politics was at the time that she was elected, but I knew that everybody would be concerned that the prime minister and his wife, just curiously, having such powerful positions, it was like you said, it was a question that was simmering and being observed. So I just saw that because of the strength that the PNP now has in the whole election process and moving towards I would think the general election, that now would have been a strategic time for them to voice their concern, and they had some amount of political capital to to say it and to resist. So I think the question is, like I said, that Mark Rose is a question that has been on the, in the consciousness since that time, since she was appointed. That, oh, now you have a quote unquote king and queen, type of situation. I don't know if in the history of, I would stand to understand if in the history of, parliamentary scenarios, you had a prime minister and or his wife being, so closely aligned, and then it's linked at the person that was removed when she was
Speaker.
appointed. Wasn't she also a issue with the integrity commission why she
Yeah,
was removed?
yes.
So it was also it was, right. So it was also the continuation of the issue now with the integrity commission that is also roiling, it's roiling that, okay, so new speaker comes in and the status quo remains the same in relation to the expected revelation or whatever that process that is being ping pong, you know, table tennis that's going on in relation to this. And then I think there's even speculation that two of the persons that are named of the six is actually the prime minister and his wife. So if that is speculation, that's moving underneath all of this. Why is this tabling of the names not occurring? Obviously, people in the know, you know. To me, it would erupt at some time, and I would think that Mark Golden strategically used this occasion based on, the political capital that he now has negotiating on. But it is a question that the nation and wants to know. Is she there as Speaker of the House independent? Are they named? If they're not named, the only way you're gonna know that they're not named is if the names are given and the context. I don't know what this integrity commission information is. The last speaker, it was some car business or some kind of trading or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's fair game for me. I think Mark again was strategic, and it's a question that is linked to the Integrity Commission lack of clarity or what is game is being played with that.
But doesn't the PMP position now is that what they oppose her as a speaker? But early when she was appointed, the PMP leader of government business in the house said he has no problem with her appointment.
I
So
think I
my
think he
question,
explained that.
yeah,
Didn't
but my
Paul well
question,
explain? Go ahead.
my question is, does it undermine Golden? Can the Jamaican people, or does it reinforce a certain perception of Golden in the Jamaican people mind as someone who flip flop? This new position, doesn't it undermine the PNP and
No.
project Golden as a flip flopper? What do you think?
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm thinking that it wouldn't reflect Golding being a flip flopper, if you want to call it that. But I think again, like Maxine said, it was strategic, because another point is that, you know, at the time, Golden never jump and speak out about it because, of course, the kind of what was circulating underneath, because this is something that even came up in discussion, and and Rattigan show a few times, is that um, the implication of the report and the former speaker, which caused her to resign, and all of that. All of that wasn't known officially. And Oldness being, the two Oldnesses being and the being part of the report and all of that. And remember, I think she was the one, the speaker was the one who claimed that the report wasn't ready because I guess investigations were still ongoing or something like that. Right? So everyone was pretty much waiting for the right moment to really see how she was gonna handle it. Right? Because the point is that, as Rupi says, with the law, there's the auditor general can present a report. There's nothing in law that says that the speaker can alter the report or send it back or anything. A report is a report, right? So the whole thing about it is that I think it's a matter that the PNP expected that it would blow up in them face, right? And that's pretty much where it was heading, and which is why she sent the report back, and which is why they raised it at this point. Right? So it was I wouldn't look at it as flip flopping.
Last,
Nothing right now.
Rupi, overall, the budget presentation, what's your impression? What's your impression on the budget presentation? Can you hear me, Rupi?
Oh, no, I never knew it was me. In terms of the budget presentation, ah, 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 for the people, there's little or nothing, so to speak. And this continuation of every budget that the JLP present, there's this line that says there's no tax. I think Golden sort of debunked that by simply showing that mostly over the last 3 years of budget, the people were taxed by 60+%. As it relating to additional money that the government raised. And the government can only raise additional money from tax. So even though the government presented the last 2 or 3 budget and consistently say to the nation that there is no tax, what the opposition present is something totally different that show that the country is being taxed by an additional 60+%, which is 2/3, right? I think that overall you could say there's one big plus, and you have to give due where it should be given. The fact that the government chooses to raise the minimum wage, right? The minimum wage. And I think them bring it now to 3,000 Jamaican dollar per day. So in a 5 days work week, the individual can earn 15,000 Jamaican dollar. That is significant because I think they move it from 13, so is an additional 2,000, so to speak. It not it's not huge, but it's important. Given the rise in terms of the cost of living. If you ask me, I think it would be just if you could bring it to possibly 4,000 per day and cap it at $20,000 per week. But there's going to be a lot of squealing as it relating to some of those industry like the question of wholesale, domestic workers and so on and so forth and all of that. Um, that those employers I think would be squealing. But as I say, I mean, there's not much to actually speak about as it relating to the budget. Um, the Jamaican people continue to remain in a situation where those at the bottom continue to bring the burden, um, and those at the top continue to live, um, you know, very good comparing to the middle and the bottom. And I just think that, um, the people themselves, in my own opinion, over time has become very, very passive. And just like everything else, I think we're going to sit down and take this stupidness again, and until we go to the next budget or possibly the next election, call.
And how soon you see an election?
I don't think we can say election now. Um, I think it is obvious, as much as the government said that they win the local government election. If you look at the body language of the party, and all the fussing and all the quarrel and the internal problem, my deputy mayor resign and then them force him and him go back. The whole question that is 13 parish, but it's 14 municipalities. Um, the question, the objective reality is that the PNP have 7 and them have 7, but the PNP outnumber them by 21,000 as it relating to the majority of vote, and win the two largest municipality, which is Kingston and St. Andrew and St. Catherine. Um, so it is obvious that in a situation like this, there really no ease to call the general election, because obviously they are going to lose it. Again, we should also remember that the PNP increase their majority as it relating to councillors. Um, and therefore it put the People's National Party in a position that if the election should call immediately, certainly they would certainly in the driver's seat. Against that background, I think the government and the Prime Minister strategically would certainly delay and use the time that they have, which is about 18 months or so, to try and see if them can change some of the thing that upset the people. And I think them try to do that with the increasing of the minimum wage. This thing with Warmington too is very interesting. Warmi have been one of the worst member of parliament in this country. I don't think there's none that can match him in terms of just being
Arrogant, man.
rude,
Nasty.
arrogant and rude, and to everybody, including him very own. And the fact that the Prime Minister chooses this time to fire him, I think is a reaction to what Mark did with that that brother from Trelawney, who apparently make some statement that was supporting scamming. And Mark immediately, apparently asked that person to step down. So I think it would look so bad if the Prime Minister never, disciplined Warmington at this time. I think against that background, it is a way to try and to show the people the minimum wage thing, the fine of Warmington, and we can look at some other things. is a way to try to see how the JLP and Andrew himself can build back a certain, trust and so on amongst the people.
Let me hear from the others, no? What's your take? Last, Patrick, Maxine, what's your take on what Rupi is saying?
Yeah, I agree with Rupe. I think looking at some of the things that the government is doing, you can see that the kind of strategy they'll be using towards the next election is to try to throw in some sweeteners, to kind of bend the minds of the people. Like the things about the student loan guarantor thing and all of that. I think the GLP will be, until the next election, they'll be looking at ways in which they can make little economic changes to influence the vote in the next election. The minimum wage, the student no guarantor for student loans, things like that. I expect that they will be doing more things like that to kind of shape the election, because it is clear from the local government election, that they feel shaken up a bit, because I think that they went into the local government election feeling much more confident that they would come out with better figures. And then the figures seem to, because Oles himself, after the election, says that, they have to go back and look at, what they have been doing. It's rare that Oles come out with that kind of statement about looking at what they are doing, So I think we can listen for more things like the minimum wage and the student loan stuff, coming, which puts some pressure on the PNP, because the PNP is gonna have to look at their organization and look at what they can also do, to influence the votes coming in the general elections.
I think one of the big pieces we keep forgetting is about the low turnout. So, the election results is not anything to really jump about, because it was a low turnout anyway, right? The vast majority still stayed home, or just simply, you know, um, refused to poll a vote, right? And that is the piece that both parties will be looking at over the um the next several months before they can get to a position of readiness for an election. Because the ones who vote seem to be more core supporters, right, of both parties, which of course it reflects good numbers for the PNP, but it's far from being sufficient, right, to really secure them a victory. So that's something which oftentimes is forgotten, right? It is the voters who are independent, or the voters who simply are just, as Rupik said, passive, about the situation, you know. So there's lots of work to be done on both sides, right? And neither party has a sufficiently good showing to really speak about.
That is my sentiment also, Patrick. Neither party has offered anything progressive. In this budget, there are some little crumbs here and there. For instance, they're going to set up a trust fund for anyone who born what 62 or some there about. They're going to set up a trust fund. They're going to start giving art students stipend. You know, these are little thing breadcrumbs here and there. But I think the Jamaican people want something more fundamental than that because you hear the cry. People are crying, not only cry for justice, but also jobs. The GLP is touting the business processing jobs, and I have people involved in that industry, and they're telling me that what they're getting is nuts, chicken feed. So how the PMP and GLP going to get out of this? Because where the money is going to come from? Holiness put a lot of stuff on the table, which I agree with Rupi. There are going to be massive tax increase down the road to pay for some of these things that Holiness is proposing. But I haven't heard anything from the PMP as to what is it, what economic policy or social policy are they advocating?
That was kind of my question for Rupi too. Is in terms normally with a budget presentation, you have an opposition response. Um, what has been Golding's response as far as the budget is concerned? Rupi?
Rupi?
No, I'm in sympathy with that view that there's nothing fundamental and significant coming from the opposition as it relating to an alternative position to the present government. But to note of interest though, the thing around the student loan thing was basically an idea original from the opposition that the government now proposed that they would apparently remove this thing in terms of this from the student in terms of the loan that student have to repay or no or get person who they have to come up and actually stand up as guarantor for these students. I think but that is very important. But I don't think it was the government ideas. The opposition, are you guys, I think both Patrick and somebody else raised the issue that the point sort of slipped me, but I'll get back to it. But in a nutshell, I think that the opposition, it is the point Patrick raised in relationship to the fact that I think is 29%, 29.1% that turnout. The last election I think it was 41%. What is of significant is that the PNP base to some extent, I think came out. Not fully, but to some extent. That is important. But what remain, and I think this is where Patrick's point is imperative, the middle section, the people who are neither PRJ, but vote according to how them see the situation and their own assessment of what is happening. Those persons appear to still remain at home. And again, it compared to the national election, which we saw 33% turnout. This time we have 29% as it relating to the local government election. So it is significant, as both Patrick and Michael say, that the both parties have to work hard in order to win the middle section. I think the PNP basically get back its base. And I think more people can come out for the national as it relating to the PNP base. But of importance is the middle section, right? Who basically is not aligned to any of the party. And I think that is the era that both parties have to work like hell in order to get that support, because that support. But the country is in a political apathy type of mood, because there's the feeling that that I don't like to use the term swapping black dog for monkey. I think it have a racist connotation. But people are saying to some extent, no better barrel, no better herring, to use the colloquial expression. Um, and 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 that is the point, that a significant amount of our voters are saying that the PNP no better than the JLP no better than the PNP. Um, all of them involved in a this and all of them involved in a that, and so on. That is a huge, huge, huge problem. And I think the People's National Party, even more than the JLP, have the responsibility to manifest and basically to convince the middle section that we are different. Because historically, the PNP can show that, right? But they need now, particularly the younger voters, to show the younger voters what is the distinction between both parties as it relating to who help and support ordinary Jamaicans historically.
Maxine, I'm interested in hearing you. You know, you're down there, you're interacting, and you're doing all sort of thing. What's the feedback amongst the creative industry people like yourself? Because you're operating in Jamaican space, and what happened at the government and opposition level, will have some impact on the creative industry. Nothing was said in the budget about the creative industry. So, from your side of the fence,
Yes, well, I that's why my thought personally is almost like this was a general election budget, in the sense that they were presenting. Well, I don't so much know what the PNP was presenting, because so much of the energy went to this walking out, of the JLP, and that dominated the news cycle. And then, it was the JLP coming back again as if nothing happened the next day. I was particularly disinterested, in what they were saying. And whatever I heard being offered was was almost like electioneering, rather than like appealing to the people substantially, what these changes would affect what is happening on the ground, which is the cost of living, the cost of going to the market and buying scallion and some very basic things. That's what I hear on the ground, like basic food things are getting out of the reach of the people. The reasons for that and how you're going to counter that, I didn't hear anything at all in what was said. I heard some cosmetic things about you're going to build a road and highways and all of these things. But again, I travel on the highways, and the highway is actually disrupting significant economics for people on the other roads, and then the highway itself don't have any economy on it. Meaning, like when you drive the highways in America, there's some, you can go and buy something, or you can come off and there's business on the highway, and or you can come off and get some business done, etc. I just see we're supposing about highway and road as the way that the information is being brought out and how it is affecting the person and the prices of the food that is not that is out of the people them reach. Like, people are very much can't afford food. So whether it's the middle class or the poor class, in terms of the creative industry, I heard them talk about uh, what's it, entertainment zones, and they're gonna put up, places for people to play music. Again, it wasn't connected to how the creative industry is gonna earn. It was just a complaint about noise, like, oh, it's too much noise, and the people at Hope Gardens making complaints, and the shows are locking off at 2 o'clock. So it was more like, oh, we're gonna have these zones to cut down the noise, but there wasn't like an economic roadmap as to how whatever they were presenting was gonna be, um, benefit to the creative community. So I, I just look at the situation to say, well, what is going to happen is that the people are going to be tired of all of these benefits going to a certain clique, right? And so the person on the ground, if you continue to do these things and your set of people continue to benefit your side, then after a while it's going to be this, what you call it, corruption index, which we are not doing good in. You understand? And I guess it's nature of politics that the people who are in power and or their friends are going to benefit. When that barometer start to go too much to one side, then you're gonna have a blowback to say, well, as Rupert said, swap black monkey for dog. You are gonna swap. You understand? You're not gonna say, okay, I'm not gonna swap because one is a black monkey and one is a dog. There's gonna be another reason why you're going to swap. Because too much is going to this side, and the potential for corruption or the potential for benefits to a certain clique is going to be too obvious, and it's going to show up. You understand? And somebody is going to trip a wire, and the wire, which is what I got from this whole drama about the Integrity Commission and all of these reports from the Auditor General that the administration and the transparency and accountability is not there. People that are in government seem to do as they like with, these processes. And so they are going to trip up themselves if all of a sudden somebody said, oh, but we have $7 billion unaccounted for. So if I'm the public and I'm reading that, headlines of these billions and billions of dollars that, the country is running, yes, they're saying things are happening, but what is this constant flow of information in relation to the administration of the money, So I think those, if it's a swap, if it's a black dog for a monkey, there will be a swap. If that is the nature of what the election is going to be about, there will be a swap, to see, well, swap them and see if we, the people, can get little better something out of whatever they are doing. You understand? That's
Hold on,
why.
Maxine,
hold on. Let me
Maxine,
welcome Rupert. Let me welcome Wesley
Wesley.
to the discussion. Welcome, Wesley.
Yes, my brothers and sister, good evening.
Maxine,
Continue,
I
Rupert.
just want to ask you
What
one
is a
question.
Rupert?
Yeah, Maxine, what
Your
is this
camera,
comparison
Rupert, fix your camera off, you know.
Auntie? And
Huh?
what is
Yeah,
this
Rupert, fix your camera.
comparison
Yeah, okay.
with with this black dog and monkey something? What is that?
No, it is what was said before. You were talking about the budget and that neither side had any substantial um, declaration that is changing the needle for the people. The minimum wage or whatever that they're talking about. When you calculate that down to the actual person on the ground going to the what do you call it, to the marketplace, and can, I go to the markets and I see what is happening with the price of basic stuff. You understand what I'm saying? And people can't use too much garlic, or them have to be figuring out how to, you understand, seasoning. You understand what I'm saying? And maybe the world economy, it may be, shit is just weird. But at the same time, you see all these apartment buildings going up, and the people don't have a knowledge of why is all of a sudden this construction, like, it's just crazy. And they have an idea that this construction is not linked to them. It may be linked to hardware and lumber and some people, but how this money is coming into the country, and how is it benefiting me, all of this great um, um, economic development,
So
so,
you're
and
saying,
it's more like, oh, we are laundering money, or what is it that we're doing? People bringing them money in to, because the American government, something happened in the banking system, and people who in Jamaica used to leave their money abroad have to now bring back the money in, and this is the way to do the money. That is not policy. You understand? And nobody's explaining that. Why are these apartment buildings? Why is this real estate overproduction of stuff? What is triggering it? Is it the
Well,
economic policy of the government to make the people earn, have a better standard of living?
why don't we ask Wesley? Wesley's in the real estate industry. Wesley, we're talking about the budget and what is in it for the people. So we want to hear your take because you're on the ground. What can you tell us?
What is in it for the people? I was listening to it. I listened to it. I read after the budget, but I cannot see anything real substantial for the people. Uh, so, what we have to do, what the government have to do, is to really come with a real package for the people. There's not, they speak about the two things that struck me. They speak about sorry,
The road improvement program.
the road improvement program. They speak about housing. They speak about
Yeah, social.
student loan,
Yeah.
and students don't have to have any more guarantee. And they speak about lifting the minimum wage, and they speak about um, the pensioners. Right? I didn't hear anything about how we're gonna have better hospitals, more beds in the hospital, more equipment in the hospital. I didn't hear anything about that. I didn't hear anything about in terms of the classroom, or we're gonna have better classrooms for the students and the teachers who are teaching in the classroom. I didn't hear anything like that. Right? Though the for the budget for the persons who they say are pensioners, when it was calculated in terms of what was given to the pensioners, um, it was minimum in terms of what they are getting now, just a little bit, just a little scrape. So from my standpoint, I don't see anything inside of it for the people. For the Jamaican people, I don't see any real benefit. When they speak about they're gonna lift tax on certain agricultural products, it means that they are not looking out for the farmers. They are not looking out for us who is buying the goods and services from the farmers. Because when you lift tax from the imported stuff, it means then that they will be flooding in goods that is more cheaper. And if you flooding goods that is more cheaper, that is what they say will be more cheaper. It means then the farmers in Jamaica will not able to produce to that level. So therefore the farming class, the peasantry, the people who farm, right, they will suffer more because the goods will be cheaper according to them, right? But the farmers will have to produce at the said level in terms of buying the fertilizer at the high value in terms of dollar value. Good. So I really don't say anything in terms of the construction. There's a lot of construction going on in terms of high-rise building, as this sister was saying. Sorry, sis, I don't get your name, so I will say sister for the time being, right? So as the sister was saying, which is a real thing, I am in construction, I'm in the whole thing. And no, they are said the high-rise building is concentrated in a particular space in uptown, in the Barbican area, in the upper scale of the society, but basically concentrated in Barbican and some section of New Kingston and in those spaces, right? But the money that is to buy those units, poor people cannot buy it. So it's not for poor people. And there's no houses that no building for poor people. The government said that they will be building houses for poor people, and they name a whole lot of schemes. But all of these programs will be coming in the next year and a half too. All right. So in the meanwhile, poor people will suffer, right? In terms of nowhere to live, bad roads, same way. Although they have a program that they said that they will fix the roads, right? Poor people will suffer. Areas that the water system is bad, poor people will still have low water system, and some places it won't have. So I don't really hear anything for the poor. It wasn't a poor man budget. It wasn't a working class budget. It wasn't a budget for the peasantry. It was a budget for the upper echelon of the society. That's where I will stop for the moment.
And what's the PMP? What's the PMP reaction to all of this? You're close to the PMP. What are they
I
saying?
am I am close to the government. I am close to Jamaica. I am not close to the PMP. I am a part of the system. I am not a member of the PNP. I am just one of the people in Jamaica who votes for the PNP and will vote for the PNP because the PNP is the progressive movement every time in Jamaica, right? So the PNP, I didn't hear sufficient also from the PNP, right, in terms of how they're gonna counteract this this budget, or they're gonna counteract and the alternative. The alternative was not sharp enough, was not clear enough. Maybe Rupi can back me up on that, or is undergoing like me in terms of the politics and understand it too. Right? So I did not get it that way. So the PNP still come short in terms of what they will do for the Jamaican people in terms of uplifting the systems, uplifting the classrooms, that we can have less students in the classroom, that we can have better teaching aids in the classroom. I have a family of that is full of teachers. I have two daughters that is teaching. My wife is teaching, right? So I have people that is teaching. So I understand that. I understand the pressure that they have. Every evening they come home with more books and more work and more this, but it's not sufficient. And they speak of the conditions in the classrooms. They speak of more schools still having the chalk and thing, no whiteboard like you guys up so who have fancy classroom and classroom with air conditions and classroom with good bench. The classrooms that you and I went to school in, that big bench, that board bench, many of those board benches still in the classroom, especially in the rural spaces. And the desk and chairs that we usually move and say, this is my desk, right? Those desks are not properly, kept. So that is it. In the hospitals, we still need better people is still in the hospital. There's a virgin of ours, Mikey, who got an heart attack the other day, right? And he went to the hospital and he had to sleep. That's last week, just last week. He had to sleep on the bench for 2 nights before he was able to see or get a bed. And by the time the doctor come around, the doctor say, all right, we have to send you home to deal with your thing. You follow me? So there's nothing. The system is down. It is not a working class system. It's not a system for the poor. I am not getting it across from neither the PNP or the GLP, right? But I think the GLP will always be worse than the PNP because they are not for the working class in any more shape or form. Yeah.
You have heard Wesley. Let me hear the feedback to what Wesley said. Now, if there's any feedback, any question.
I mean, if the response, I don't know what people on the ground are saying in terms of the PNP, but if that is the feeling about the PNP, that they are not doing sufficient, it means they have a whole heap of work to cover, whole heap of ground to cover by now and the next general election. Because one, they're gonna have to make their platform known to people, right? And to make it applicable and people friendly by the next election. They're gonna have to up their organization. As far as I see it, the PNP gonna have to turn every 2 and 3 people into active supporters, or where they have 2 and 3 people who are active supporters of the party, they're gonna have to mobilize all of those people to go out and make their platform known and organize and do all these things to try and compensate for what is happening now. Because the GLP, even though the election, the local government election might show them and the PNP at a certain level, I think they have the advantage, right? They have the advantage because they can manipulate the resources that they have, right? They can give out contracts in certain areas where they feel they're not making sufficient grounds, right? So they have more leeway to influence votes than the PNP. So the PNP has to be on a campaign to let their platform known and to mobilize right across the country, and I don't know if they're in that mode now, because I think the PNP and the GLP right now, they seem to be seeking bragging rights coming out of the local government election, and that's a waste of time right now, especially for the PNP, because getting bragging rights as to who win and who lose has nothing to do with the coming elections. I think they need to get out of that mode. I think they need to go out in the field and start doing some serious, serious work to make up grounds.
Ishmael, I welcome my brother. Ishmael is a young man from Waterhouse. He's active in the PNP circles, a former youth parliamentarian. And Ishmael, we're talking about the budget. Can you give us your take? What is in it for you, Ishmael? What you see in that budget that was presented last week? What is in that budget for you? What can you identify? And should the PMP be doing more? You're mute.
He's
You're
mute,
mute.
he's mute.
Yeah, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Blessings.
Good evening. Happy to be here. Good evening to all the 346 people watching. Sir Patrick, how things? Been a while.
Yes,
Um,
Ishmael.
yeah, yeah. All of the other brothers and sisters, I appreciate being here. Um, as it relates to the budget and what is in it for especially young people, because I won't just talk about myself. He did in fact roll out a lot of goodies. If you want to look at it like that. However, um, it's not necessarily goodies that young people can benefit from if they are visionaries, and some of the programs are actually already there. Take for instance the heart, the slew of announcements he made about heart and the so-called reform of heart,
And
as
the
it relates to,
stipend.
so yeah, even the stipend. So these are things that would have already been a part of heart's operations, because if you are a student of heart, you will be given a stipend, so that's not new. If you finish, they offer you assistance as it relates to get started into a business or to be placed into a job, in which they call the job placement program. So it's not new. Having been a student of heart myself, I can tell you. So these things aren't new. What I noticed that he has managed to do is, because of the lack of information about some of these programs, he will come on a particular platform and speak about them because it will sound new to people. Also, as it relates to housing, and let me not go to housing yet. Let me go to the Students Loan Bureau. The announcement that they would have made about the Students Loan Bureau as it relates to the elimination of um, guarantors would have been something that the opposition would have been championing for a while. I say that because not just to give credence to the opposition, but for information, because it may come off as if the the government is doing something novel, but all they're really doing is implementing proper ideas, which in fact that's what they're supposed to do. The issue comes whenever you're trying to pass off an idea as your own and not giving credence to that particular idea. That is where the deception, I think, comes in. So housing now, before this budget, he would have announced that as it relates to how you can acquire a house, he would have announced that if you are under the age of 30, you will pay no additional interest on your loan. And that, I think, personally, is a good thing for any young persons. The issue with that, though, is how equitable the process as relates to getting a house is, because personally, through my own research, that don't quote me on this, but through my own research, I've found out that the NHD isn't really targeting first are homeowners. Um,
First time
yes,
buyers.
ironically, that is in the policy of the NHD to target first time buyers. But that's not so, because it's incredibly hard for me, because I'm actively hunting somewhere to live and I can't get a house through the NHD for one reason or the other. Also, the fact that the NHD has outsourced its processes and loan process to banks and loan sharks speaks volumes. It means that my income going to the NHD is not there anymore, because of the fact that the government has been, you know, withdrawing a certain amount of money consistently every year out of the NHT, which means that if I want a loan, I may have to outsource it through the NHT, so that um I don't necessarily think that is a good thing for a young person. Also, this thing about me partnering with three persons just to buy a house because the housing market is so inflated, I think personally that cannot be visionary thinking, because of the issues that can come up as it relates to assets and properties. Let's say for argument's sake, myself and Mikey and Patrick buy a house, and because I'm the youngest one, me decide say me I go cook one pot for put on Mikey and Patrick. These things are reality, so I don't necessarily think that that is something um you know good for for um for young people. Also, as it relates to, so let me look at the budget again. What else has he spoken about? He spoke about the what's it called, the minimum wage. While on the face of it, it's a wonderful thing that the minimum wage earners are getting an increase, but in the grand scheme of things, if it is that minimum wage is going up, it means that cost of living is too high, one, and it also means that people that are earning minimum wage and their employers will have to, on the face of it, find more for their administrative duties, which means that if it is that I have, let's say, a security company, I have to charge um, my clients more And if I charge my clients more, they will have to now offset that bill onto their customers. So I don't necessarily think this constant raising of the minimum wage is anything good, personally. However, because of the cost of living, you can't help but feel that there has to be some way to alleviate this, and the way that he chose is to raise the minimum wage. R- I don't know. I can't tell you the thinking behind it because I'm not the you know I'm not close to the prime minister. I just hear him speaking and making my own assertions from his speech. He spoke about some other things that I don't necessarily think were novel one and were in fact true if you really think about um, where the trajectory of the country is going. So for now, that is my thoughts in relation to it.
Rupi, I saw your reaction. You were
Yeah,
shaking your head.
I I just want to respond to something that young Ishmael just a little while, which I think in a way it's sort of contradictory. And Ishmael, I would think, you see, my brother, that the fact that the government raised the minimum wage, um, you have to wait as it relating to the broad masses, to the people at the bottom of the ladder, right? Which is them people in a wholesale domestic workers, the low end, right? Are the working class within the country. It no matter which government, whether it is your government or the JLP, it is imperative because the cost of living over a period at a time has actually risen by about roughly about nearly 9 to 10%. Um, so yes, the burden will have to be on the employers who employ these people. But you must also recognize that basically everything gone up. And Sister Maxine spoke before, and she was so direct by speaking about ground provision in the market. And I mean, a pound of onion for sometimes $300. I go in the market and see ordinary Scotch bonnet pepper for 700, a scallion for 300 a pound, and so on and so forth. So
So
this
ridiculous, Patrick.
eh eh
No, man, with the 700 Scotch bonnet, so ridiculous, man.
I no lie Mattel, man. Me buy at the market almost every other week. I no lie Mattel.
It's so ridiculous, Rupert. Me know,
Yeah,
so I don't
man.
lie
No,
what me
man.
say.
Thing.
Lime
But
was a
but in a
thousand dollars.
general sense,
Lime was a
Ismail,
thousand a thousand
I
dollars a
support
dozen the
most
other
of
day.
If
eh?
if it was a lie, it wouldn't be ridiculous.
Oh,
But you heard what Wesley said? Wesley said
um,
lime was $1,000 for a dozen. So who
And
can
that is
afford
to
that?
make
yeah.
your lemonade, which was supposed to help draw the, you can't
Um,
afford the
So
drinks. You
so
don't
much
like to purchase
so
the
much is
drink
the
and you
sugar.
can't
How
make
much is
Let
the
me
lemonade.
sugar?
finish my comments, Ismail, though.
Yeah, all
Because
right.
I don't want to appear to making a fraternal criticism, and I don't support where I think. I think most time other points them is on point, and I
mm,
agree with him. Wesley raised some point earlier on too. Um, the point is that we 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 have to be as objective as is possible. Where because I would hope that when the PNP come to power, maybe them can raise minimum wage from the 15 to 20. I would think that what could balance out the cost of living at this time is that every man who work don't supposed to earn less than $4,000 a day, which can carry home roughly about $20,000 for a 5 day, 40 hours working week.
all right.
Um,
So, all right. All right. Are you, well, when you're through, I'll give my 2 cents on it. Are
no,
you
man, you
through?
can go ahead. Go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead,
yeah.
Ishmael.
Permit me. Apologies for cutting you off. So it's really a double-edged sword if you look at it, because the only way and anybody with experience in economy, as an economics major, can back me up on this. The only way you can move any country forward is through agriculture and productivity. The truth is, Jamaica is not productive. So I say that off the background of you raising the minimum wage on a non-productive country is a recipe for disaster. Why do I say this? I say this because if it is that you are going to raise the income, the, the income bracket of the low earners, that's wonderful on the face of it. But where will the money come from given that the country is not earning properly? Did you know that is over 75% of our food bill is imported goods, which means that Jamaica as a country is not producing enough to feed its own people. And I say that because if it is that you are going to raise the minimum wage, and also on the face of that, raising the income level, you are going to um um diminish that, almost abolish the tax threshold as it relates to imported foods. It means two things. It means you're putting additional pressure on the agricultural sector, which is already suffering, and it also means that you are giving food imports more of a precedence over your own local food. Let's say, for argument's sake, um, you know, watching the trajectory of the world, each country will now have to provide for itself as it relates to food. What will happen to us? Because, as Allah will always say, and my grandmother, God rest her soul, always tell me, Pastor Christian in Pitney first. Which Pitney you think under this administration the pastor can christen? He can't christen none. Why? Because he don't have it to christen anybody. He
Uh,
don't have it. So I'm saying that off the background of, while it is good for you to raise it, because there is in fact something called a livable wage, and that is in fact something that we should look at. What you should also take into consideration is the well ultimately are going to dry up because there is nothing in it. So I say that because if it is that me have one little business and me have to go pay, let's say me have a helper, never have one in my life, but let's just say me have a helper. Me have to go find out of my pay an extra $2,000 to give her every week, right? Me have to go also find, if me drive, gas put in my car, me have to go find food where always I go because we don't grow nothing here, right? Me have to go find food where I raise, and all of these things are going up. Do you honestly think that so I'm raising her income and it's wonderful, but if I'm looking at it from her standpoint, me giving her an extra $2,000, given that she have to go take bus, where if I on the JUTC bus, which is incredibly inefficient right now, she have to go find $250 to come to work every day, right? She have to go find food to eat if me not provide it for her every week. She have her own family where she have to take care of. Do you honestly think that? Do you honestly think that the 2,000 can do nothing for her? No, it can't do nothing for her if we
can,
not help her. However,
No, Ishmael, stop. All right, I hear you.
Ish,
Stop, stop.
can,
I
Ah,
need to make one.
you say a lot, my brother. And a lot of what you say, you just a contradict yourself.
you
The
think so?
point is, my brother, yes, some of what you're saying is contradictory, right?
Okay, tell me
Because you
why.
just now defend the helper that you give $2,000. And I'm sure it's difficult for she even take bus and so on and so forth. And at the same time, yes, you can't get her because you have to go buy gas and so on. And so you're saying a lot, my brethren, but part of what you're saying is contradicting exactly what you're saying. I would say to you, the first thing in terms of the agriculture thing and the economic thing that you put as an economist, um, that basically it is not true that we're not producing. What we need to do, we need to produce more. But as I just said a little while, if you're going at the market, you will see the prices for goods. And the prices for goods, the biggest part of the problem is that the man who in the field and a plant those ground provision, him not getting the pricing. Who get the price is the person at the middle and the person at the end is the eagles. And that is part of the problem that we have. The price can go to the farmer so that the farmer can play the man in the field, the additional $2,000 a week, right? So we have to correct, and I agree with you that our importation is definitely still too high. And part of the problem is that we are very foreign in terms of our taste. So we eat a lot of rice and we eat a lot of white flour, which not good for we, right? The point is that we need to eat more banana, more yam and so on. So young Ishmael, we can have a lengthy discussion on this. But don't get into
can
the
I
book
respond to Ishmael?
type of economics type of thing. Because sometimes it's not practical. It just comes straight out of the book and it now deal with the reality and the objective situation of the country. That is what I would say to you. But I respect your opinion. I listen to you intently. You definitely are correct in most of your analysis as it relating to most of the other point. I have a significant difference with you this one in terms of the minimum wage. The people of this country deserve to get $20,000 every week instead of 15. That is where I would stop.
Can I respond? Can I respond?
Last, before you move, Wesley wanted to say something. Want to react to Ishmael?
Yeah.
Ishmael,
Yes,
we're gonna
yes.
come back to you, you know. So make
Ishmael,
notes.
on the minimum wage situation, all right, and I will always speak of the construction industry. I'm in construction, all right, and I earn, all right. I have a business. I'm in construction, and I am earning the minimum wage. I have a sister who work at my place, work with us, and the minimum wage was what, $12,000 or something like that before. And before the minimum wage, I was paying her $15,000 per week. That is $60,000 a month, right? Because when I check in terms of she's coming from Old Harbor and what she have to pay in terms of the bus, right, and food and so forth, and yet still, most evening, she stay at our place, and we still pay her that. You understand? And I know it's still mager. So where you can pay the minimum wage, you should pay it. A lot of us can pay it. Some of us cannot pay it. Right? Some people cannot pay it. But a lot of us who employ people, in our household can afford to pay the $15,000. Because sometimes we go to the Kentucky. Those of us who go to the Kentucky three, 4 times a week, right? And the Kentucky is not cheap. So people who must pay, who are working in your spaces, who are dealing with your children, who are cleaning your house, and so forth, they must be paid and paid well. But as I said, I was paying that before to my person who white name there. UPA said that people should earn at least $4,000 a week in terms of
A
the
day,
A day.
a day. In terms of the construction workers, most people in construction, laborer is working that. That is where most labor is getting $4,000 a day. A skilled worker like a mason is getting like $8,000 a day and more. So in the construction industry, we are paying. You have some people who don't pay. Some big some big companies don't pay that, right? There's a book There's a book that guides the construction industry in terms of what you're supposed to pay. This is the book. This book here, if you can see it, is a master builder's book. This book, Master Builders, and it speaks to the different prices that you pay each person at skill level. I pay my workers at skill level because I charge to pay the workers. I expect good job. I expect the people to come on the site and work properly, and I expect to give quality work. So if you are getting quality work, then you're supposed to pay. So most people in the construction industry is getting that. As long as you don't find a contractor who is criminal and greedy and feel like they must not. But the government, as I spoke about it some time ago, in all the contracts with the Chinese, right? They were not paying the labor rate, and it was government project. And if you check Rupee, all the government projects, they are not getting that amount of money, and it's from the Chinese, and it is government. The government sign off on it. It's about 20 different people. So all the trade union, Rupee are in trade union, and you know about it. All the trade unions sign on it. The Ministry of Labor sign on it, right? And it's not that Jamaica is bad. Jamaica is bad. In some places, some people can find money, some people can't find the money, right? And the most of the people who can't find the money is the people who are the unskilled people, and the people who are not educated sufficiently to help and build the economy, right? So what we need to do in this process, in terms of the industry, in terms of everything, we need a serious agrarian reform project in this country to build that, and we can pay some people. But the government have to be serious, because the government don't pay on the construction sites that the government is run. They don't pay that. And I can take on any Mr. Prime Minister and that, anybody in the right name there, because I know people who work on government projects, which is not getting that. So the Prime Minister is the one. The Prime Minister, government, the government of Michael Andrew Wallace is one of the people who are oppressing the people in this country. Although they are talking about poor people, and they want to uplift. They are not uplifting anybody.
Yeah.
Last. Yeah, I'm coming to you next, Maxi.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Last.
In responding to Ishmael, I just wanted to point out the other side of the coin when it comes to productivity and payments. Whether or not in the country, whether or not productivity is up to par, there is a certain section of the country who are being paid, right, are creaming off profits from whatever the productivity is. Their wages and salaries and profits will always be guaranteed. The minimum wage, we talk about redistribution of income. The minimum wage is just one way of trying. It's not perfect, but it is one way of trying to redistribute the income so that the income don't go to just one section of the population. The profits, the earnings of the country don't go to just one sector of the population. And whether or not, I mean, the concern when you raise minimum wage is always for the people that Rupi talk about, the small employers, right? Those are the people who you will be you have to be concerned about. Because some of these people, as you say, there are people like me and you who need somebody to do something in our homes or some service or whatever, right? And the minimum wage might affect them a little bit. But it is about redistributing the income, and the government have ways of recouping some of that redistributed income from the people who can afford it. Right? So just raising that point with you.
Um.
I, I
Okay.
don't. Ishmael, Ishmael, hold on and let Maxine go now. Maxine,
Yes, I was just reviewing quickly the budget presentation by Mark Golden. Um, and it brought me to mind about 10 years ago, there was a move in the Caribbean to develop a Caribbean Reparations Commission to look at how the economy of the Caribbean states, in particular the English speaking states, were structured that they could not win. And they did massive amount of research as to how and why these countries should be engaged in the process of reparation from how the global economy that is still dominated by the countries that were the colonial powers, and what relationship our nation states um, could not be developed if this status quo remained. And they set up a commission at the Caribbean Reparations Commission in the University of West Indies. The national governments each set up a national reparation commission, and it was all about identifying that, for example, I'm going to this because we were talking about or the mention of agrarian reform and productivity in a setting where these states have to import the food. It has nothing to do with the taste of the people or buy Jamaican or start eat banana versus rice. The decisions are being made around us by the world economic system. And so our response cannot just be a local response talking about this, talking about that, when in fact you can't make these promises or these ideas that you are talking to your nation state about. There's no way to achieve it. The only thing you can do is induce in the people some level of hope that you, the government, can posture, that you can deliver to them, when in fact you cannot do anything about the way that these things are flowing, right? So if in fact, as national states, you engage the research and development to present that the Caribbean economies, worse now to be impacted by climate change. If you know how much money is pouring in now in relation to climate change, and it effects that are coming, you understand, to affect these same agricultural objectives. You understand? And so I'm saying to myself in listening and saying, but wait a minute, the other day, these governments understood and were supposed to now be educating the people about these realities so that it can be supported, this demand for reparations, in order for our societies to be able to be competitive towards bringing equity to our people. You understand? I don't see the JLP is what the commissions came under. There was commissions set up here, there, everywhere. Then all of a sudden you don't hear nothing because, and then you're hearing about constitutional reform relating to these governments abroad, England in this case, that's supposed to be, we are supposed to be discussing reparations with serious reparations, meaning to say we have serious departments of research and development instituted at our highest university level, right? So if it is in fact that we are, because we're arguing about the economy and trickle down or trickle up or whatever, and we are in a highway that is going to impact us even more because this whole heap of food and import. I see it now in the ganja industry. We're here talking about the Jamaican right to ganja and this and that. And then all of a sudden you're going to hear that you have to import the ganja because your industry is going to need lower cost inputs, right? That you in Jamaica will not be able to grow the ganja to feed an industry, that you're going to have to import the ganja now from Colombia, right? Yet still you're here talking about an industry to include what? To include who? When eventually you have to go and import the ganja to make the products and services according to how the world ganja industry is constructed. So as I was talking about the swap dog, swap black monkey scenario, it really need an independent of both sides to really bring these facts into the people's consciousness, even to the consciousness of the political parties, for them to stop talking to the people about things that them know can't work. Not because of us in Jamaica and what we do or whatever, because of how the economic system of the world is situated, and that we are now subject to buy the economic goods and services of, we have to compete with the world. When I'm in the coronation market, you know how much bags, when I say, okay, those onions over there or whatever bags of onions is coming from abroad. The garlic is coming from abroad. You understand? And the people in the market are just as much trading the international ground provisions as much as they are, with the farmers. We are competing with the world in our economy. And no one is, I don't know if it is bad news, and therefore you cannot carry bad news to the people because then they will vote you out or something. But really, this whole issue of the reparations and the so-called constitutional reform to remove the queen, or whatever them called, which is another symbolic information that they put into the people. Reform and remove the queen before you get your reparation. So when you remove the queen as a part of the constitutional reform, the information that you have as a government of people that you have researched, and you have even hired a law firm, lay-day law firm, to go and sue on behalf of this information. You understand? And you're supposed to be educating the people that are suffering to really understand where the roots of their inequity is coming from, not just from the upper class elites that are doing this or whatever or that, but the structural problems that they have. I see we're in California now, New York. They are talking because of this reparations situation with the African descendants. I think California the other day just, I don't remember how much, $100 million that they have now negotiated now to give to black descendants of, you know, of what they have done in America. In New York, they're debating the same reparations. They're arguing now that the Caribbean people that come in there or the African people that come in there cannot get any of these reparations. It's only for the Africans that have been there from that time, and they're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. So where's the reparations? I ask myself. So the Caribbean people who are in New York over how much 100 years cannot get any reparations, just watching what is in the news, this is not like some paper or something like that, that is some blog. This is the National New York Times. And I'm saying, so they're saying the Caribbean people in New York cannot benefit from any reparations that that state is now seeking to institute to try to deal with the effects that they are responding to.
Can
So
can you can you allow Ishmael to respond to what you're saying? Ishmael.
okay.
So that was a lot. One, but well, let's let's take last point first in relation to you know the productivity issues, and I can segue into anti-vaccine. Um, Firstly, it is incumbent on any government, whether the government of the day, whether a government in waiting, or it is incumbent on any you know administration to put policies in place that will be
Definitely,
beneficial for all.
definitely.
If you can't do that, then you shouldn't be the government, plain and simple. I say that off the background of the the conversation that we were having before in relation to the minimum wage and the economic issues relating to the minimum wage versus people having a livable income versus a minimum wage, because let us not forget the minimum wage is in fact an act of parliament versus us versus the talks now about a livable wage versus minimum wage. you know so that is one thing. And this is part of the reason why I said it's a double-edged sword, because on one hand you have to think about people, and on the other hand you have to think about the employees, or the business sector of the country, because make no mistakes about it, in every country you will have the business sector, but the 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 majority of that sector are middle to you know are MSMEs, are small business enterprises, and it's through that economic economic drive happens, not necessarily through the big corporations, because most countries depend on a middle wage earner. So that is one thing. As it relates to Maxine's point in relation to you know income versus food and reparations, Auntie Maxine, I can tell you, as it relates to myself being a little youth, reparations has been a fight, for every country, versus our commission to you know CARICOM. I know successive governments have been lobbying for reparations. However, what is important to note is that while the fight for reparations happened, the truth is we still have to live. And that means that the government of the day will have to find remedies until that issue can be sorted. So those remedies include what we do whenever we decide to vote on a UN convention. And I say that because you were making mention of the world economic structure. And through the world economic structure, you have the big top tier, I like to call them big wigs of the world, the China, the United States, the EU as it relates to particular countries that we consider first world countries. And you know Jamaica, as it relates to the UN convention, is considered a developing state. And because we are a developing state, I don't think we should, you know, ascribe um, to any notion that any first world nation put themselves to. That is the aim, but it shouldn't be a case where we should start ascribing from now. What we should do, however, is to put these small, little policies that affect us in place. And I say that off the background of us trying to 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 particularly speak to, or particularly um do as they do as it relates to first world nations, um as it relates to the agriculture and agricultural industry and our productivity. Again, it is incumbent upon any government to ensure that we are taken care of first, and the truth is that is not happening. I give you an example. And I'm sure whenever you sign on to a UN convention, that that particular document is sent to you, and it's through that document that you draft policies, and it's through that document that you start your consultation process within any part or any sphere of the society that it affects. And I'm saying that because while it is that we have the importation, and in order to properly administer particular laws in this country, we have to be a signatory of whatever UN convention it is. Let's take, for example, the importation of raw foods. As it relates to our local policy. I don't remember the name of the policy at the United Nations. Um, but but if that is the case, I've never heard of any country. You can be sanctioned, but I've never heard of any country being blacklisted because it is that they have never particularly you know followed word for word whatever the UN convention says. Because the truth is, each country has its own nuances. So it's through those nuances that you have to first um, provide for your people, and then you can now start following the processes of the UN. So I say that to say, while it is very important that we because we're signatories, we follow what the UN says. It's also important for you to provide adequately for your people. How do you do that as a government? You create the space where every local, let's say the farmers, every local farmer can in fact thrive. There is this argument in the space in relation to what happened earlier in Parliament as it relates to the finance minister's budget presentation, that we had no that we were going to be sanctioned. Fine, fine. That was in fact an issue. However, this is why you have appellate bodies, and this is why you have particular, the international arbitration of international arbitration courts. So trade sanctions are a thing, but retribution is also a thing. So if it is that any government find itself in this position, you have to make the conscious decision who comes first. It can't be the international donors or the international trade organization. It has to be your people first, because
Mm. You're
we
you're
are
right.
who you provide
Yes.
for,
Mm.
right? So I'm
Definitely,
saying,
Ishmael.
so so I'm saying the truth is, if that is the case and you were sanctioned, you fight the sanction. Because the truth is, as it relates to any convention, again, there is a method of how you, just like the court of law, if it is that you were found guilty, there is immediately after you were found guilty, that there is the appellate court. And if you feeling that the appellate court didn't do you any justice, you have the courts of appeal. well, not the Court of Appeal, the Privy Council, you know, and that is how it happens. So I don't subscribe to that argument. And again, Auntie Maxine, we do in fact, import massively. But think of it this way: if it is that we import massively, the only way that we can save our particular productivity as it relates to agriculture is that we start not just pumping finances, but pumping real support to our local farmers. And it's through those local supports that you can start seeing the bill going down. Let's say, for argument's
Mhm.
sake, we import millions of tons of onions. If it is that we have particular local farmers that grow onions, let's say, um, it cannot be a case where our local onions are more expensive than the foreign onions. It should never be. And that is what is
It
happening
All
now
is.
right.
in our local market.
Ishmael, don't labor the point too much. I think you
Can I
make the
can
point.
I can
I
I
think
say
you make the
something?
point. And let me just, you want to say something, P Mac? I want
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
support something that Ishmael is saying.
Hmm.
All right. I am in sympathy with Ishmael. And Maxine point, generally speaking, agree and disagree. Uh, I think Ishmael make the point that the World Trade Organization, I like the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and so on, are basically skewed to support the Big Seven, United States and the European countries. Hence, there is
And
something that
Asia.
they try to do as it relating to grains, another important import to so-called developing country and third world country. And what them, for example, Africa is a good example. Africa have 65% of the arable land of the entire world, over 50%. But Africa is one of the main country that import grains, right? Flour, rice, and all them something there. The part of the thing is that the underdevelopment of Africa through Europe and North America basically put Africa in that type of situation. Our situation here is to try to dump is, for example, they will subsidize farmers in America who basically will dump those goods both in Africa, Asia, and in our country. Ishmael point about using the thing in terms of example of onion. Just recently, sometime last year, the local farmers who produce onion in the country had to come out and demonstrate, and the government had to stop the importation of onion and allow the local onion to go into the market. And therefore it come to the point that Maxine raised before. If we want to stop and minimize the importation of flour and rice, we can. But the first thing has to happen is that we have to develop a taste more for yam and banana and cocoa and sweet potato. That's the first thing. So if the country develop the taste and recognize that we can benefit more from yam and banana and cocoa and sweet potato, naturally we can minimize the intake of flour and rice. And naturally, it means that we get the demands for our local agriculture product are going to definitely rise. So young Ishmael is correct in saying that even though the WTO have some position where them try to force countries like us to import them grains, the fact is that we can find ways in order to deal with it and to get around it. And it is more so if our people can develop a natural taste for our ground provision, then certainly we can throw it through the window. So I agree with
Um,
Pat-
Ishmael.
Patrick,
Yes. Very interesting discussion, right? And I just want to commend Ishmael on first of all his analysis. The first time he spoke. Unlike Rupert, I kind of disagree with Rupert um a bit in challenging Ishmael there, because I understood where Ishmael was coming from. Right? I don't think Rupert understood him sufficiently, right? And that's why he saw it, as something confusing, as something him confusing himself. But that is part of the dilemma when Ishmael, when you try to use the very academics that they teach you to justify your point, because it cannot. It cannot, right? That's part of the problem with the education system. It is an education system for a reason. It is not for our benefit, it's for theirs. Right? That's the biggest problem about the academics. So when you look at the economy, the biggest thing about it is that we have all kinds of surface reactions to it because of our lack of understanding as to what a budget is, what it's supposed to be, right? And what is expected, right, of a budget presentation. Because half the story is not told, right? And then the pieces that they give you don't come from no integrity. That's the essence of it, right? If you were to look at the numbers and all of that, that is what will tell the story, right? That is the piece that Ishmael is speaking to when he talk about the lack of vision, because the budget wasn't showing really where it is expected to take us, right? So all the dynamics come in terms of, as you mentioned, Rupi, the World Trade Organization and all of these other factors, right? When you see that the day-to-day experience don't match up with what they tell you, because it's not true. It's far from it, right? And the point to which Maxine raised in terms of reparation and so on, therein is the core of it, because by and large, things have not changed, right? If you look at if you look at the story, for example, when foreign onions importation started with Jamaica, when it started in the 70s, it started in the 70s, right when we were looking towards really restructuring ourselves and start to understand better where we need to be going, right? That's when the whole Igla trade and all of that erupted, right? And the whole taste of foreign start import peas and onion and garlic and all of these things, right? And then the local farmers start to take a beating, right? You have to look at the story for what it is, right? And you have to understand it for what it is, right? The real dependency, right? The real dependency started after the so-called independence, because the so-called independence is not independence. Independence means self-determination, which is something we are yet to deal with, right? So we have to really examine the thing in order to understand it. This is why we have a passive, right, voter population out there, as you mentioned, Rupert, right? Because by and large, people don't understand things better. By and large, they are no better in their understanding of what's going on than they were a year ago. It gets progressively worse, right?
Yeah. Just to add to what Sir Patrick is saying, and Sir Rupert, you see, personally, I don't know if this is a personality flaw of mine. I appreciate you know objectivity, and I appreciate contradicting arguments, because that is how we learn as a people. Um, Personally, what I believe though, and this is just my personal belief, I think the leadership of any human being and the leadership of any country is paramount. And I say this because I no, not mine. And I say this because there are certain principles as a human being that one must follow never mind a country, as a human being, let's say for argument's sake, something you know as a human being will affect you 10 years from now, right? You decide you will forego that particular vision for short-term gratification. Can never be. And I say that off the background of some positions that I will see, and I am not being partisan here. I say that off the background of some positions that I see this particular government take that I cannot agree with on the part of principle. Because the truth is, principle, my grandfather used to tell me, a man is nothing without his word. No matter how much money him have, a man is nothing without his word. And if it is that as a country you are going to take some positions on the international stage, then you are going to come and say, we are not taking this position. And I hear you guys speak about trickle down economics. If it is the case that I am telling you that I don't subscribe to a particular thing versus what Rupert, Auntie Maxine, Uncle Patrick, Uncle Rupert, sorry, Uncle Wes, Big Brother Mikey are saying on the ground is different from what I'm telling you. Something is wrong. Something has to be wrong. And Sir Rupert, I am telling you, Auntie Maxine, I'm telling you, on the ground is incredibly the reality on the ground is vastly different from what you are hearing every day from these leaders. It is.
They're not leaders. I keep
It
saying
is.
that.
And I keep
Gentlemen,
Yes.
gentlemen,
Hmm.
I do not believe that this conversation is going to end. It's going to continue, continue, continue.
Of course. Because
You
each item is a topic in itself.
yes. So let us hold it here today. I think we enjoy a wonderful discussion. And
Yes,
I
it was
want
good. It was good.
yeah, I want to thank every one of you for your contribution. Let's continue the debate, the discussion next
Before
Sunday.
before you wrap up though, Mikey, I think we should particularly thank Ishmael. It's the first time I'm on your program and I will get a youth. The program need more women and it need more youth. Because you have a demographic out there that we want to reach. And
Yes.
I think
Definitely.
it is imperative. I would want to see Ishmael and more of Ishmael on the program. And I
Yeah.
think Ishmael, even though and this is in good jest, Ishmael. Even though him sound a little bit bookish, even though him sound a little bit bookish,
um,
I think
me a
him
street
bring a
youth,
certain
man.
energy. I think
Me
him
a
bring a
street youth, man.
certain
Me a street
energy
youth.
to the platform. You know that that is critical, and we just need to bring more young people and listen to them,
Mm.
and you know, and I hope I don't come across as Ishmael as
No,
this
no, 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 no,
Uncle
no,
Root
no, no,
you thinking. Yeah, all right, my brother.
All right.
That is
no,
what
no.
I want to say.
Ishmael,
Yeah, just
Ishmael.
just before you finish, uh,
No, but before I go say anything, you heard what Rupi said.
mm-hmm.
Okay. You have a set of youths that you're working with. And
Yeah, I was just about to let the panelists know.
what I
Um,
want to say is that
mhm.
next week, Sunday, let us have a discussion with you and them.
My youth them.
Yes.
All right,
All
yeah,
right.
man.
That's going to be a
You,
Also,
night.
you, you, you're talking about them youth from that came on Ratigan?
no,
Ratigan?
man, different
Oh.
youth. The Waterhouse youth them
Different
matter
youth.
about, man.
Waterhouse
Oh,
youth
Waterhouse
we
okay.
are
people them.
talking about.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay,
so
okay.
so I was just going to, in terms of introduce, what little old Ishmael I try to do.
I think
So
Yes.
it include women as well, right?
of
Yeah.
course, yeah,
Yes.
man, it
Okay.
Yeah.
includes women.
But
Can't
before
let the woman them.
let him finish. Allow him to
Um,
finish because he has something
yeah. So
important he
so
wants to
as it
share.
relates to MySpace, so I'm a Waterhouse youth. Uncle Patrick and oh, sorry, Uncle Patrick can tell you. And so I'm a Waterhouse. I still live there. I still am, actively involved in the space in terms of trying to, you know, save as much as I can. And it's off that background that I, humbly ask for, for the support of you all in realizing this, because what I notice, and this is why this is so important to me, that it only takes, one, and I am trying in terms of, the little that I can do to save as much as I can. Just before I came on, I was having a conversation with a lady. I may have to take money out of my pocket and give her, sort of thing, because the reality on the ground is she on the Sunday dinner, sort of thing. So I say that to say, in relation to on the ground, the people don't just need, you know, help in terms of knowledge, but they need physical help.
Economic
And
help.
yeah, man. So um, whatever it is, and when the youth them come on, you will hear it, because we're trying sometime out of my own little minimum wage work. Yeah, man, work minimum wage, Uncle Rupee. Serious thing.
Call center you work, Ishmael.
No,
Call
no,
center.
no, no,
Oh,
no,
all
no.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So I put that out there to see how best we can
Yes,
save as
that's
much
it.
as we possibly can in whatever
Okay.
way we can.
All
Bring them
right.
on next Sunday. We schedule that. We just
Yeah,
deal with
man.
that next
Yeah,
Sunday.
man. Me I carry on to me youth them, man.
So I want to thank you all again, Sister Maxine, Las, Patrick, Rupi, Wesley. Thank you all, and I think the listeners will enjoy this one. We are consistently 416 listeners. That's
Well, that
good.
is good.
That is good. So until next week, I'll
Do
see
it,
you
do it,
guys.
share it.
Yeah, and to the listeners, I want you to share this one for me. And also subscribe. Remember, the vibes is nice. So come join Waterhouse Vibes every Sunday, 4 o'clock in American time, 3 o'clock Jamaica time. And you observe we're not into a lot of noise or quarrel. Every man get to express himself. That's what we are about.
And
All right?
woman.
And woman, and woman.
Yes, Maxine. Yes, yes.
Mikey,
Uh,
one more thing. I want to propose, and again propose it publicly. I
Yeah.
think I would want to hear some of your viewers, some of your listeners. So I
Yeah.
we
think
said it
maybe
already.
periodically, if it's even one time a month, you can open the mic for even half an hour and allow persons to ask
People to
questions.
call, like having a calling segment.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
man.
Mi-
right.
People
You
to
Mikey,
can't,
call
this is the
in.
second time this is coming across, Mikey.
yeah, you can't do it
Yes.
spontaneous though. You have to make them know that you're going to have calling so that
Yeah.
people come
Yes.
expecting to do that.
Come with Christ. All right, my brother.
All right,
All
take care.
right.
Blessings,
Yeah,
God
blessings.
bless.
come on.
Yes.
Ishmael, hope one day we meet together.
Yeah, man, we have to meet, man.
We have
Yeah,
to meet.
yes, sir, West. As a matter of fact,
We
make
have to
make
meet.
Uncle Mike give him a number, because we have much to talk about.
Yeah, we have to meet. We have to
Yeah,
meet.
man.
All right, my brother.
Mm.
Bye bye.
Yeah, take care.
Blessings.
Take care,
Yeah.
Wesley.